Welcome to the X Block.
Am I right, Marine? Sir, yes, sir! Then listen up.
You're listening to the X Block. I'm Jaren, he's Caleb. Let's get into it.
You are listening to the X Block E3 2021 coverage. I'm Jaren, and I'm here with Caleb.
Heyo.
And usually we host an Xbox podcast, the number one Xbox podcast in the world.
Probably.
But today we have stepped down from our giant green statue,
Our pedestal.
to bring you the Ubisoft press conference.
Yes. In all its glory, the E3 2021 Ubisoft conference, and this is an X Block podcast review of that conference. Or, we're just analyzing it, going over what was shown, and, with everyone else in the industry. But our opinions are superior, so you don't have to worry about that.
That's true. And just to start off, the first thing I wrote, because the conference immediately started with gameplay, I wrote immediately into games. Suck that dick, Coke.
Suck it. Well, if you guys watched Koch Media's primetime show before E3 as part of Summer Game Fest, I'm sorry. I'm sorry that we both, you and I, not you, Jaren, but you and I, the listener, we have to remember that together. So anyway, moving on to the much superior E3 Ubisoft conference.
Yeah, and immediately we kicked it off with Rainbow Six Extractions.
Yeah, they showed they started off with a CG trailer, which I was like, man, they're just showing CG for this shit. And then they immediately, moved into gameplay for the game.
Yep, they did the traditional Ubisoft where they go, here's a long CG trailer, now we're going to talk to developers for a quick sec, now we're going to show you gameplay.
And I'm kind of fine with it, because throughout this conference, I'll just say, when they talked to developers, it wasn't too long, because usually you don't want that. It wasn't, annoying. They had a good setup. They didn't say anything really stupid, kind of, Yeah,
we got actual information from them.
Yeah, it didn't overstay its welcome. But yeah, they went into the gameplay, and they showed off a lot of Rainbow Six Extractions. Previously, Rainbow Six, I think Pathogen, in a code name, which was previously before that Rainbow Six Quarantine. But then, for obvious reasons, they changed the name.
And I'm just going to bring us through a quick bullet points of what I saw.
Yeah, go for it.
What I got from it was its elements of Siege mixed with Left 4 Dead style gameplay. Left 4 Dead style gameplay down to the exact points where they have basically safe rooms that you go into. You're fighting a horde of aliens, and it's 1 to 3 player co-op, and you guys kind of work together. It also takes from another game that's called GTFO, and it's a PC game mainly, where you kind of go into this place and the aliens don't know you're there, and you're kind of sneaking around and trying not to disturb them. And that was the same style that we got from this game, obviously with the Siege elements added in of the operators. Yeah. And one interesting thing they said was you have your list of operators, but if one gets captured, then that one's gone until you go back and save that person, and you kind of don't have their progression and stuff.
Which is a pretty interesting mechanic. And I didn't know about GTFO? Is that what you called it?
Yeah, I think that's what it's called.
Whatever it is, I didn't know about that until you mentioned it earlier when we were watching the conference. That was interesting. Yeah, you're right, though. It looks kind of it has some Left 4 Dead style mechanics, but the enemy, horde content isn't that big. There aren't that many enemies, typical, Left 4 Dead.
It's very to the point of, you're not supposed to tip them off, and if you do, you'll probably get fucked. Seems to be what they were hinting at.
They showed a bunch of enemy types, like the Grunt, which I was like, that's a Halo enemy type. Get the fuck out of here. They showed the Breacher and a Spiker. And I think that all the enemies or the aliens are called Archaeons or something like that.
Archaeons or something.
Archaeon, however he pronounced. I didn't know if he pronounced it that way because he's French or because that's how they're pronounced. I was confused. But it's spelled like Archaeons. I don't know.
Yeah.
And then they said the release date was soon. They're going to talk about it soon, rather.
Yeah, they just said they were going to talk about it soon.
Yeah, not that the release date was soon. They were going to talk about it soon. I misread my notes for a second. But yeah, they didn't give a release date. I don't even think they gave a release window, right, Jaren? It was just more later. But they showed gameplay, though. So don't expect it too long, too far away. It was pretty in-depth gameplay.
I would expect a beta sometime.
I would too. And it looks, like Jaren said, it looks just like Rainbow Six Siege, kind of, with aliens. And a little bit faster paced with some Left 4 Dead elements, if you're excited for that.
And one last thing before we move on to other stuff. The cities that they pointed out that they have maps in, at least at the start, are New York, San Francisco, Alaska, and Mexico.
Good call. I'm excited. I would play the Alaska map. Depending on how much this game costs, Jaren and I will probably play it because it's co-op. And so, you can follow the X Block Podcast, at X Block Podcast on Twitter, all these podcast services, and look forward to us playing that eventually in the future.
Yep. And moving on. But then they moved on to something kind of not up our alley, but I guess it's for someone, the Rocksmith Plus.
Yeah.
Idea where they've now added the ability to use electric and bass guitars, and they have far more like in-depth tutorials, and it's a subscription service now, and they have a workshop where people can add their own stuff in. And they announced that they're having a closed beta starting today if you sign up on their website.
Yeah, it's like a gamified music learning software with guitar and bass. And like I was talking to Jaren about it during the conference. I found it a bit like that kind of thing, a bit weird. I kind of get what they're going for, but it's someone like me is like, man, I love Guitar Hero and Rock Band. And then back in the day, some people would play those games and then want to play guitar, like that would get them into guitar. And so this game doesn't really target that fan base, though, of like a Guitar Hero Rocksmith, like the more casual, normal people who play those games and enjoy them. This isn't really for you. And then the people who are like already people playing instruments or want to learn in a more traditional way with the normal teacher or something in a traditional setting, it's not really for you either. It's sort of that weird middle ground for people who want to kind of play somewhat of a gamified individual music learning experience. We don't have to talk about this too much more because it's pretty niche, but yeah, that's what they're going for.
Yeah, I think it has the potential to be like a bigger thing than what some people are going to give it credit for, but it really has to have a good launch and like good word of mouth for it to take off.
Yeah, it really has to reach a specific market for it to maybe grow in the music industry as a bigger platform.
Yep. And then they hopped over to Riders Republic, which is coming the 2nd of September, 2021.
Yeah, and it was shown off last year, right?
Yeah, it was shown off last year. And this game, I don't know, like it looks as cool in this way that they showed it off as probably it could have. And they had cool features like the trick battle 6v6 thing, which essentially I equated to, it's kind of like Splatoon in the sense of you kind of put your stamp on each trick. And then when you take over enough of each trick, like areas that you've taken over, then you win.
Yeah, and it is a very unique game. Like I think you described it during the conference of like, oh, it's somewhat like what did you say? It was Steep?
I said it was X Games Steep, but like I guess that's kind of what Steep already is, but it's the winter X Games. This is like the summer X Games version of Steep.
Yeah, they have snowboarding and everything. It's like all climates, and it's kind of like almost like an MMO multiplayer-ish X Games, like Jaren said, type of game. It has team-based competitions that you can be on teams with like you have Fortnite dancing and emotes that was on there. Not really Fortnite, but like you had the characters dancing around. You're like, oh, you got that from Fortnite, cool. But unlike last year where they just showed kind of riding bikes and various other X game style content, this time they showed jetpack gliders and jet bikes, and those looked kind of fun. Not gonna lie. They were like these people like racing, a bunch of people flying through the air with these on jetpack gliders, some people flying off and dying and crashing, and you're like, this is crazy.
Yeah, they slyly teased 64-person races, which that was the most interesting thing to me. I was like, wow, 64 people, like I'd be down.
It sounds kind of fun, but it's another one of those things where like, man, this is a specific audience, you'd think, and it has to be the right price or even free to play for people to hop in, right?
Yeah, if it's a full price game, it's definitely going to have that paywall that really affects it. Like, I feel like this is going to need to be a For Honor thing where it's either has a huge price drop or they slap it in Game Pass or something like that.
Yeah, to be especially to keep player counts up with like 64
player races, yeah. And then they moved on to some Siege news for all of you that are still into Siege. 6 years now.
Rainbow Six Siege.
Yeah, and they announced crossplay on PC. That was a huge thing that they announced. And they announced early 2022 cross-platform on console play with cross-progression.
Jaren, I'm in the joke of like, how much did they have to pay Sony to get the crossplay?
Yeah, pretty much every game they announced was crossplay, so they either paid Sony a lump sum or they blackmailed them into not making them pay. One or the other. For
those of you who don't know, during the Epic, lawsuit leaks, it was revealed that Sony was basically charging publishers to have crossplay in their games, so shaking them down, nickel and diming them for crossplay.
And I know this is a huge thing. They announced Thunderbird. Apparently, they're going to join Team Nomad. We haven't played Siege in a while. We played it right at the start, so we have no idea what that means. But for all of you Siege players and all the guys that are really into it, there's a character called Thunderbird coming, and my sister said they were a new defender. Hopefully that's right.
Yeah, hopefully. We don't really play it. Jaren and I were huge proponents of Siege at the start when it wasn't popular, and we got to like rank 100 something, right? And we played the shit out of that game for like the first 6 months, and then we stopped, and then that's when it started getting huge.
Yeah, and they fixed it. They fixed all our complaints about it, but we had already just moved on to other games at that point.
Totally a bit different now too. So we, anyway, that's our kind of Rainbow Six Siege tangent, and that's what they showed. And then they moved on to Jaren, my favorite game.
Oh, Just Dance 2022? Or do you want to talk about the sizzle reel quick where they had like minimal announcements?
Oh, I didn't really even see anything in that sizzle reel. You can go ahead and talk about that.
They had For Honor DLC for all of you that are playing it on Game Pass or care about it. Then they had some Trackmania stuff. I don't even really know what it was. They showed like bouncing on water, and maybe that's new things for their track creator. They announced Crew DLC, and they showed Watch Dogs upcoming DLC, and they teased a Ghost Recon 20th anniversary teaser. So I wonder if they'll show more Siege stuff at that or something. Maybe that's when they'll announce the Rainbow Six Quarantine thing. Who knows? But yeah, then they hopped into Just Dance 2022.
Well, before that, let me say real quick, Jared. What was the scissor reel? Those games like Watch Dogs Legions. Are you excited for any DLC? You played that game.
I don't know, man. It's just like I don't care much about like this like different DLC from the game. Like obviously people don't want to play the same thing over and over and over again. But I'm like, if you just add a zombie mode to the game, like I don't really care that much.
And then you and I played The Crew too, like whenever that came out 28 years ago. So it's interesting they're still supporting that. But yeah, that was kind of all we have to say about that. And now on to Just Dance 2022, boys. Here we go.
Yeah, with our boy Todrick Hall, who me and Caleb aren't quite sure who that is, but I think I've seen his face once.
Yeah, your sister was like, "Oh, Todrick." I'm like, I don't know who this is. He looked really excited. He looks like he was really passionate about it.
Yeah, he talked about how his dance is now in the game, and then they showed it off for being available November 4th for basically all the consoles.
Yeah, so, if you're a Just Dance person, be excited. I'm more excited because I loved the meme for however long till 2019, 2020, where every Just Dance game still released for the fucking Wii, literally. But now it doesn't come out for the Wii anymore.
It was Switch.
So. Yeah, now it's the Switch.
No more Wii, Caleb. You gotta let your Wii die.
It was so funny though. It's like 2018. They're like, "Yo, Wii game coming." Like what?
Good old the Wii, man. What a console. Brought everybody in the world together to video games and then let them all go immediately with the Wii U.
Indeed. The Wii U sucked. I guess next they showed Assassin's Creed Valhalla expansions, right? They just kind of showed off Valhalla.
Yeah, they talked about updates and improvements and little events that they're adding to the game, but that was all very minimal stuff that they've been doing for the last year.
They showed off the Druids DLC, I guess, or the expansion that just, Wrath of the Druids that just launched in May, I think. And then they said, expansions are coming for this game, like multiple, get ready, like through next year, through 2022. Expansions be here.
Yeah, they unveiled the Siege of Paris announcement. And they said it's coming out for this summer. And they said during that, there's going to be these kind of like, I wrote Hitman style missions. They're called black box missions, where you get to kind of approach the mission at any way that you want to approach it. So I just equate that to Hitman.
That's a good call. So yeah, if you're a big AC Valhalla fan, which a lot of you apparently are, because it was their biggest launch for any Assassin's Creed game ever.
And if you have actually played the game and finished it, I'm not going to spoil it here because Caleb hasn't, but they did announce Odin-related DLC that's coming like far in the future. They didn't give a date on that. And they talked about their Discovery Tour, which is their like kind of history lesson thing that they do for the games, where you can hop in and like explore the map without any of the combat or stuff. I think they use it more for like schools and teaching kids history.
Yeah, it's just if you're more historian-focused kind of man, an individual like myself, even though I wouldn't use this, then you can go in and learn about the history of the era. Because, these games, the premise for these games is that you get to play an assassin's character in a particular time period of history. So it's more, education-focused, but if you're a nerd, like beyond nerd, like not a nerd who plays video games, but a nerd of nerds, king of nerds, then you can jump into the Discovery Tour.
And then immediately they switched into their TV stuff, and at that exact same time, Caleb and I put down our note-taking devices.
Yeah, that was some shit, man. I watched it for a bit, and Jaren, who is a film student graduate, literally in Toronto. Jaren, you have anything to say about this?
Mythic Quest looks cool. I've always thought that show was cool and like looked interesting. Yeah, it has like cool people on it, but I don't have Apple, so I'm never going to watch it.
It has the guy from Always Sunny in Philadelphia. I forget his name. I can't remember his real name, but yeah, so if you're a fan of that show, he's in that Apple show if you want to watch that. It's about video game development. It's the comedy. And then they had something else.
Some shit movie that looks really bad. And then they hop.
I just want to say real quick, it's weird because they're like, they have these film studio or whatever, and they film this shit, but in their conference looked great, but the thing that they filmed that's coming to theaters apparently looked like not great. So.
Yeah, the lighting in their conference and when they're interviewing their developers was better than the lighting in the talking scene that they showed for their movie. The sizzle reel part of the movie trailer looked good, like visually wise, but the talking scene, it looked like it hadn't been like done right. It was strange.
There you go, Ubisoft. We spent way too much time talking about your dumb movie stuff, but we did it. We didn't ignore it.
And then they hopped into Far Cry 6, which honestly was kind of lackluster.
This announcement is a bit of a bigger thing we can spend just a little bit more time on. So they showed a trailer, and like it was a in-game trailer. It seems like an actual cutscene from the game with no gameplay. It's just, in-game footage. And they showed that, then they said that they're launching a Seasons Pass with the villains from previous Far Cry games,
that part
3,
was cool.
4, 5. So, you can look forward to Voss and the father and what was that other guy's name? I don't remember. Starts with a P.
Pagan Man.
Yeah, so they're all going to be in this kind of crazy DLC. And real quick, I'll just say that they showed that the Seasons Pass comes with Far Cry 3 Blood Dragon, and is it a remaster?
I don't know. I asked you if you thought it was a remaster. I assume probably in the notes that'll come out after this conference. I'm guessing it's a remaster, but like I'm not. They didn't specifically state it was.
That must make sense because it didn't release for last gen now Xbox One, PS4 consoles. It was just back compat, I think, right? So yeah,
it was just back compat.
That means that I may not play that, I may play it, but it's a good reason. Like that's how you fucking sell a Seasons Pass. You're like, bro, Far Cry 3 ported to current gen consoles, new achievement list, whatever, new trophy list. That gets you into the Season Pass plus the Season Pass content. That's good shit. And then just for the trailer, Giancarlo Esposito was on a boat and it was crazy, and these people were trying to, I guess, get off the island maybe, and he went and found his son who was trying to sneak away. It was graphic and a little bit, they didn't really show the graphicness of it, but they implied it and they kind of cut for the trailer. He's a great actor. It was a lot of emotion, good trailer, but we didn't see direct gameplay because they showed off their gameplay shit before the conference. So it would have been way cooler to jump into that with gameplay, but
for sure
they didn't, and it just kind of gave a little bit more insight into the characters, and it was fine. And Jaren and I noted that it looks not super next gen, like it really looks like a PS4, Xbox One X game. Honestly,
yeah, it looks held back.
I just played literally as of like last week. I just beat Far Cry New Dawn for the first time, which came out 2019. Looks the same. Can't tell the difference. That's honest opinion. So that's a interesting point about that, about Far Cry 6. Looks like it'll just be a fun game, enhanced by next gen, but not really for next gen.
And dude, remember, Giancarlo Esposito, good guy.
Great guy. Yeah, he said what was it, during Summer Game Fest, he did, which would be, today's June 12th, this conference. That was June 10th, I think. He recorded something with Jeff Keighley, and he was like, he asked him about his character, and he's like, my character's great, man. I couldn't tell if he was joking, because he kind of stuck to it, too. I think he was. Yeah, but he stuck to it super hard to where it almost seemed like he wasn't. Where he was like, he's misunderstood. Like, he was like, no, he's misunderstood. He's a good guy. He's trying to do right, and he doesn't think he's bad doing it. And dude, that motherfucker's evil as hell.
I bet he doesn't think he's bad. That makes sense.
I don't know, man. I'm just saying. So there you go. That's Far Cry 6. Probably one of the bigger games shown. Probably one of the top 3.
Yep. And then we saw Mario plus Rabbids, Sparks of Hope. And this game honestly looks cool, but being the fact that we're largely Xbox focused, it's a Switch exclusive. So me and Caleb don't really care that much about it.
Quick info, releases 2022, Ubisoft Milan and Ubisoft Paris. Those guys looked cool. They had the best developer shit of the developer talking stuff the entire show. And yeah, it's a sequel to the Mario plus Rabbids Kingdom Battles that released in 2019, I think, or something. So if you're a Switch person listening to this, and it is part of the conference, so we're not going to talk about it now more, but they showed it, so there you go.
Yeah, and I actually loved the first one, so if I had a Switch, I'd be there on the second one. But the resale value of the Switch was just too good to pass up.
Yeah, full price.
And 2022, I think Caleb said that, and they had this weather segment part of the trailer where it went from sun to raining, and I just put in question marks like weather cycle teases, maybe? Who knows? Yeah.
That is Mario plus Rabbids Sparks of Hope, and after that, Yves Guillemot came on stream to speak to us about and thank everybody, and he was not diddling someone on stream. He didn't mention.
He doesn't do that.
Yeah, I know. I'm joking.
The rest of his staff.
Yeah, but he's what is the traditional set? The buck stops with the CEO, right?
That's true. The butt stops with him.
We're just referencing, Ubisoft has all those allegations of sexual harassment and workplace misconduct that they said they're fixing. Just saying it wasn't mentioned in the conference if you didn't see it. It wasn't mentioned. So
IGN will be mad about that.
Yeah, which we're kind of fine with. We're just more joking about it. I don't actually, it's an issue, but it doesn't seems like it would take away from the developers and the games that they showed.
Yeah, make your public statements and let your conference be a showcase of what your developers have worked hard to accomplish.
Yeah, that's kind of how I feel about it. But then he led in from his statement, Jaren, into we were watching it, and it was we were sitting there watching, and Jaren and I was like, Massive, who's the Division developers, like Division 2 and all that, and I was like, they're working on like 3 games. Like, we know they're working on a Star Wars game and an Avatar game that they announced like fucking 4 years ago. Like, are they going to show anything from them? And then Yves Guillemot said, oh, and just one more thing. And I was like, all right, Jaren, is it a Star Wars or is it Avatar? Before they even showed the plants or anything, I was like sitting there, is it Star Wars or is it Avatar? And, we took our guesses, and I was like, yeah, probably. I didn't think it was going to be, but I was like, I'm guessing Avatar. And they showed the plants, and I was like, oh, that looks like a Star Wars planet. And what was it, Jaren? It was Avatar, finally seen. So they showed it off on the Snowdrop. It's on the Snowdrop engine. I think it was all CG, though, the trailer, correct?
Yeah, I think it was in-engine footage, probably.
Yeah.
Because obviously they teased the Snowdrop engine and all that kind of stuff. So I assume it was in-engine footage, and it's probably relatively close to what it's going to look like. Because as we saw at the end of the trailer, you said it was next-gen exclusive. I think that's what you pointed out.
If you look at all the consoles at the bottom of the trailer, it was like PS5, Xbox Series X and S, and I think PC and like Stadia. I don't know if PC was on there for sure, but it's Stadia. They didn't say Xbox One or PS4 or anything. So
okay.
It's next gen exclusive, it seems, coming out. They said 2022. Yeah, we'll see. 2023. I would expect it. They showed that, and it was really pretty, actually. I don't really care for Avatar. I don't like most people. Like, I saw the movie, but don't really care about the IP. And I saw it, and I was like, well, that was kind of cool. I'm not like sold, but I'm like, it looks good enough to keep me interested. So,
dude, I've discovered that average people love Avatar. Like, you'll talk to an average person about Avatar, and they're like, yo, loved Avatar.
The amount of lore and IP out in the universe, and you choose to really like Avatar. Like, what's wrong with you? Unless it's like Avatar The Last Airbender is better than Avatar. So, they showed that off, and it looked pretty cool, and you can expect it, like I said, next year, or if it gets delayed farther than that, then and Jaren and I, just one quick thing. Jaren and I have a thing every year where like it's our own personal game where we count the number of something in a conference or in the conferences, and like we do it for each conference and we tally our victories, like at the end of E3. So like 2 years ago, it was the year of the wolf, and then the year of the deer, and whoever wins. Jaren lives in Toronto, I live in Louisiana. So and you wouldn't know the city, so there's no point saying. So I live in Louisiana, and whoever wins or whoever loses owes the other person a plush animal of what it is that year. So it was the year of the deer, and then last year I think was the year of the wolf, but it wasn't really E3, so I don't know if we really did that properly or something. There was another one too. I think one was the year of the spiders, or maybe this.
The spiders was the tiebreaker of the deer.
I can't remember. So there was that, and then this year's the year of the lizard, and the tiebreakers are beavers. And Jaren and I only spotted one lizard in the whole conference. It gets a little shady with those, dinosaurs in Avatar, but dude, we spotted one, what we'll call a lizard in the Avatar conference, and that was I guessed 2, Jaren guessed 2, and yep. So we tied because it was 1.
We tied for now. It's 1-1.
So we'll see. We'll keep you posted on who wins the E3, the Great E3 2021 lizard guess.
Yeah, because I think the bet, like, we pretty much settled on plush, but it's like any form of a deer or a lizard that you would like to present to the other person.
Yeah, it's a fun game. I recommend you play at home if you have any friends you're watching E3 with. You'd fucking count the lizard. But so we have one more segment, right? One more thing.
Yeah, we're going to finish this up with what we teased in our previous episode. We're going to tease this up with Fire or Faff, because on our podcast, we have a segment called The Faff, where we talk about all the news that is kind of a waste of your time, that you should not waste your time reading, and instead you should come to us and listen to us make fun of it, but still give it to you.
Amen.
So Faff is kind of like the goofy version, and Fire is obviously what the internet attributes Fire to as being great.
It was the conference was either Fire or it was Faff, and we're going to tell you, we're going to give you our rating for the Game Fest, which wasn't really part of E3, but for Summer Game Fest Kickoff Live, we gave it a Fire, and it was just a campfire, about a campfire sized fire, but it was fire. And what do we think of Ubisoft, Jaren? What do you think,
dude? I feel like I've still got Coke Media covered glasses on,
because it was so bad,
because that was so bad. But I feel like this was better than the Summer Games Fest because it didn't have those annoying segments where like someone came up on stage and announced their studio they were going to work for.
Oh, I'm 100% with you, Jaren. I think here's the thing. Not only do I think this was better than the Summer Game Fest one, I think this is probably Ubisoft's best conference ever, like pound for pound. Not maybe in terms of the games shown per se, but in terms of structure, in terms of the conference and how little it wasted my time and how much
it wasn't
was shown
2 hours long.
And the content. Yeah, it was an hour and a couple minutes. And it was great. Like, the pacing was great. I think they showed gameplay for pretty much everything. or at least in-engine footage for everything, if I'm not mistaken. And some of them, they showed a nice CG trailer beforehand to kind of give you the feel. Everything, which everyone hates, is, people talking. People talking to you. We don't want to see talking, we want to see the game. The people talking in this, first of all, production value, good. What they were saying wasn't super annoying or stupid, and it didn't waste my time because it didn't take that long.
It was helpful, too.
And yeah, it was nice for us to take notes. It was a little bit of a break before the next thing. The people were cool and seemed interested. Everything was cool about that. So, and like Jaren and I talked about, you wouldn't know, but during the conference, Jaren was like, well, this isn't Xbox or PlayStation. They don't have enough to show. If they just showed the trailers, the conference would be 20 minutes, which you might as well watch on YouTube at that point.
Yeah, they don't have enough to because they can't show other people's games. Like Xbox and PlayStation show a ton of other people's games to keep the trailer thing flowing.
Yeah, and this, you're right. And this, I think, Jaren, you agree? It was fire. It was a big fire, Jaren. It was pretty fire.
I just finished Assassin's Creed, and at one point in Assassin's Creed, there's a Wicker Man Fire. I'm going to give it a Wicker Man Fire.
Dude, I agree. Yeah, it wasn't like a forest fire. Like a whole forest. It wasn't like the whole world, like planetary devastation, right?
Yeah.
But it was a Wicker Man fire. It was a Wicker Man Fire. Yeah, I'm giving it that.
Big.
I agree.
There were lots of people huddled around it, enjoying the experience. Yeah, it was a Wicker Man Fire.
If you didn't watch the conference, you should watch it on YouTube now. And if you liked what we heard, if you watched it and you liked what we said, then you probably should agree that it was a fire. I don't see how you could come away thinking otherwise. But yeah, that's it. That's the Ubisoft E3 2021 conference as covered by the X-Block podcast.
Yeah, and if you'd like to know what we're going to cover in the future, head over to our Twitter at X-Block podcast, and we will tell you everything there that we are going to be covering and what's going to be coming out. Tomorrow, the only guaranteed thing is Xbox.
Yeah, for sure. Xbox.
And boy,
we'll see
are we
what
excited.
Else. And you might hear a Gearbox thing after this. Probably not, though. They probably don't have enough to show for a real, actual review. And so yeah, good times, man. Keep an eye out for all the E3 coverage and our regular episodes moving forward. Leave us nice reviews. Good times.
X-Block out.